Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and an addict living in the miracle of one day at a time recovery. And it's an awesome honor to be here and be part of this program. Rico 12 is an open to all addictions and afflictions organization dedicated to exploring the common threads of the differing manifestations of alcoholism, sharing tools, and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences, demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. Rico 12 is not allied or affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. This is Rico 12 speaker meeting number 343. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Luke H. He is a first-time guest speaker on Rico 12, and I'm super grateful to hear from him today. He'll be speaking today on the topic entitled Selfishness, and I look forward to hearing more about this message that intrigued me a couple of months ago, enough to where I moved a couple of I pulled a couple of strings to try and get in contact with, and I'm super grateful to be able to have him speak to us here today. But first, a few quick announcements. Rico 12 offers a variety of recovery resources, including podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, you can visit us at www.rico12.com. That's RECO12.com, or check the chat and show notes for links. And Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this message. Thank you to all our Spearhead donors, past and present, especially this week to Abigail and Nika. Your support truly makes a difference. If you out there would like to contribute, if your higher power is nudging you and saying, hey, check a couple bucks Rico 12's way, consider visiting rico12.com/support, or check the links that I will put in the show notes here and in the chat of the live meeting for one-time or monthly donation options. Every bit of support, whether financial or through word of mouth, helps us share these messages of recovery. Each week, we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us as listeners. Now let's welcome today's guest speaker, Luke H., whose bio is simply, I am a garden variety sexaholic with 11 years sobriety. So, Luke, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. Thanks for having me. It's always an honor to be asked to speak anywhere. And I appreciated the intro as well. I can kind of segue from that into this topic because part of if I remember correctly, was saying that we have a common solution, right? And one of the interesting things about 12-step recovery, there's literally hundreds of 12-step fellowships that use the 12 steps. And the only thing that's different about each one is step one, right? Step one is the problem that gets us in the door. And then after that, the solution to each of these is the same. And it is a spiritual solution, right? We have all manner of different physical, mental problems that we bring based on our different fellowship. For me as a sexaholic, it's lust. I'm allergic to lust. For an alcoholic, it's alcohol, allergic to alcohol. But we have a miraculous solution, right? Step one is, it's in my understanding, and I'm going to be talking from a big book perspective. It's a physical and mental problem, right? The big book says it's a drinking problem. They have a problem that gets solved, a problem that gets removed, right? And it's a hopeless state of mind and body. So this twofold problem constitutes the physical allergy to whatever the substance is, and the mental obsession or insanity that drives us back to it over and over. And this is, of course, the most baffling feature of our problem. Now, can be some significant confusion and tangling, which when I go through the steps with people, and as well as when I give talks, I sometimes will talk about, because a lot of people will put the spiritual malady, or the topic I'm going to talk about today, selfishness, into step one, right? And in my understanding of the book, This isn't what is intended, right? The spiritual malady doesn't come in until it sort of starts getting introduced in step 2, and then they really define it very clearly in step 3 between pages 60 and 62. And so the idea here is that we have a problem, a physical and mental problem that is specific. So for me, I'm allergic to lust, and I have insane thoughts around the first drink of lust, right? So these two things combine to make my life unmanageable, right? We admitted we were powerless over lust and that our lives have become unmanageable, Now the M dash in between those two statements, it is connecting. So the second part of that sentence is connected to the first. It is adding to and explaining the first part, right? My life is unmanageable because I am powerless over lust, right? That is the intended reading of that. Not my life is unmanageable because of my selfishness and my spirituality, which a lot of people do or infer. So going into step 3, they start talking about, I'll get my book out here. They start talking about any life, right? The first requirement for step 3 is that we be convinced that any life, any human life, right? Not a sexaholic, not an alcoholic, any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. They go on to say most people, right? Most human beings try to live by self-propulsion. Each person, right, is an actor. They're not talking about alcoholics here in the book. They're talking about human beings, right? And alcoholics are also human beings, right, who are afflicted with selfishness. But it's not specific, right? It is not specific, which is why it's not included in step 1. And this goes further on in the process. This becomes extremely important because if we are putting the spiritual malady in step 1, we're making ourselves different. I'm spiritually sicker. I'm spiritually different than the rest of humanity, right? It makes applying the solution to resentment in step 4 very difficult. Seeing people as being spiritually sick. Well, if I'm spiritually sicker than everybody else, then, I get a free pass. It's harder for me. I can't empathize with these people who are suffering and the way that they're disconnected from their higher power. And so it becomes more and more important as the process goes on. But this idea that, as it says on the next page on 62, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles, humankind's troubles, right? Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. So the theory here, and this is not something that was original to Bill in my understanding. It actually came from the Oxford group. It was an idea that he got from them. The idea is that all of the suffering, all of the troubles, all of the problems of humankind are caused by selfishness. I'm thinking about me and what I think I need so that I can be satisfied and happy, and I'm going out to try to get it. I'm trying to arrange life to suit myself. I'm the actor who's trying to be the director and run the whole show, right? You can see it in yourself if you're honest. You can see it in the people around you in the world all the time. People complaining or frustrated and angry, resentful, afraid, right? When we get into step 4, they're saying, hey, we're going to inventory the common manifestations of self, right? So these things that we inventory in step 4 are all the ways that, what comes from selfishness? What is the fruit of my selfishness? What is the fruit of my game plan for living? Well, it's all these resentments and fears and problems in my relationships, my sex life, right? But it's caused by this underlying thing, this underlying problem. So back to page 62, they say, so our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. So the problems that I have and experience in my day-to-day life, and as well as everybody else, are caused by selfishness. And Sandy B summed it up really well, right? The AA speaker. He would say that all human problems have one cause, and that's wanting to get our own way. So what's the solution to that? Well, don't have a way, right? Just be like a screen door. Everything just passes through, right? And that's essentially, that is the core of the 12-step solution. The core of the 12-step solution is to stop playing God, right? When I am playing God, I am living in self. I am living from a selfish perspective. I'm trying to arrange life to suit myself. I'm looking at everything that's happening around me, in me and outside of me, and I'm saying, this is good, this is bad, I like this, I don't like this should be happening, this shouldn't be happening. And the result is resentment, anger, fear, disturbance, right? The 12 and 12 says that anytime I'm disturbed, there's a problem in me. And guess what? It's always the same thing. It's always selfishness. All right. This becomes so simple when we get this, and I've taken a lot of people through this work, and it's always amazing to see like those light bulb moments, like, oh my God, it's the same thing, right? It's always the same thing. Anytime I'm having a problem, it's because I'm getting back into self, right? I'm thinking that the world as God is presenting it to me is not right. What the heck, God? Didn't you get my script? You're not following my script. This isn't how it's supposed to be. This isn't how it's supposed to go. This isn't how people are supposed to treat me. And so the process of the 12 steps is waking up to this selfishness, admitting that on my own power, I can't be free of it, right? Knowing this, similar to step one, knowing that this is the problem is not a solution for me, right? In itself, right? Because it says later on 62, there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. I don't know if you've had this experience where it's like, I can see the target. I know how I should be behaving. I know what I should be doing. I got great ideas about how, how to live based on my values. And then reality happens, life happens, I get in situations, and then I completely screw it up. I get angry, I fly off the handle, I get afraid, I get derailed, right? I get derailed because I don't have the power within me to act the way that I want to in every situation. I tell people sometimes I have this persistent fantasy that I should be able to act exactly the way that I think I should in every situation with every person, right? And the reality is, I've never been able to do that. Never in my life, right? Life happens, I get going, and then stuff happens, and man, I screw stuff up. I make mistakes, I put my foot in my mouth. I cause harm, I get defensive. I do all these things when I'm in self. And so the deal is I need a higher power. I need a power that's greater than myself to get freedom from this, right? So neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help, right? And that's when they get into the positive section of step three. They've been talking about what step three is not, right? This selfishness doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. Playing God, it doesn't work, right? They've explained that in great detail on between 60 and 62. And then they say, so what's the first part of step three? The first part is that we got to quit playing God, okay? And it's not because it's good or bad or right or wrong. Again, it's because it doesn't work. It just plain doesn't work. If it worked, that would be something, but it doesn't work. So then, and I believe even to accomplish that, even to stop playing God, I need to do this second part, which is to make God my director, right? And then it's like when I look out at the world, what am I doing? I'm not seeing it and then evaluating it against my blueprint, my game plan, my way. I'm not doing that anymore, right? What I'm doing is I'm saying, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what's going on here. What is God doing here? How does God want me to respond to this situation? What's your will here for me, God? How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. So instead of thinking that I know what's best and what should be happening, I'm approaching life with curiosity and surrender, right? So it's like, what's my role here, right? And the book says that, we're in the world to play the role that he assigns. Okay. Do I know what that role is? Am I asking my director what that role is? It's meant to be this, this constant, regular, like, how am I doing, God? Am I on track? Am I doing what I think you want me to do? Right. And all through the book after step 3, they just repeat themselves. You, you see it in every single step. It's like, well, what's the solution? Well, you rely on God, ask God what he wants you to do, and stay out of self, right? Get out of self over and over and over. I want to go back a little bit because I skipped over it, but the root of selfishness, right? So why do I try to live from selfishness? Why do I try to live from this perspective? Well, there's this line on page 61 that I believe sums it up perfectly. It says, "Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well?" So I think it's going to work, right? I think that if I get what I want, if I get life arranged the way that I think I need it, I'll be happy and satisfied. It'll be great. It'll be wonderful. The show will go off great. You'll be happy. I'll be happy. Everybody will be happy. It'll be wonderful, right? And what this line says here, I'm going to unpack it a little bit because, we tend to read words and not think about what they actually mean. So a victim, that means I'm a victim. It's something that's bigger than me. I'm getting beat up by it, right? I'm a victim to this idea. And delusion is, it's like I'm clinging to an idea that is completely false in the face of great evidence to the contrary, right? And you can see this in your life, right? You're going through life, you're having all these problems, disturbances, resentments, angers, fears, right? I'm getting slapped all over the place by this reality, this truth that this way of living doesn't work, right? And I'm doubling down on it, right? I'm doubling down on the selfishness. No, I just need to try harder next time. It was because I wasn't demanding enough, or I wasn't gracious enough, right? This can go both ways on the surface, right? They say very clearly that we're self-seekers even when trying to be kind, right? We can be mean, egotistical, and selfish. We can also be patient, considerate, kind, and generous while trying to get our way, right? So it's tricky, right? It's not just what's on the surface. It's what is my motive? What is my intent here? So this is a delusional idea. It's false, but I'm clinging to it in the face of great evidence to the contrary. And then that he can rest. Rest spelled with a W is like wrestle. So it's to forcibly possess, right? I'm trying to forcibly possess satisfaction and happiness out of this world by managing it well, getting it arranged the way that I think I need it. And this is the false idea, that we are a victim to. Okay. So part of this process, and I believe it's supposed to happen in step 3, is to wake up to this. To wake up, oh my God, yeah, this game plan for life is not working. This really sucks. I'm having a terrible experience. I don't like this very much. But one of the things that I see, and I've seen it in myself, I've seen it in people that I work with, is this is a tall order, right? This is a tall order. I believe it's the most significant shift in perspective and living that a human being can experience. To shift from a selfish motivation and approach to life to a selfless, God-centered, love-based perspective and approach to life, it changes everything, right? It changes everything, and the rest, to the great extent, the rest of the steps are teaching us how to live that out, right? They teach us how to apply it in different areas of our lives. And to kind of summarize, so we have a twofold problem that brings us here. And then we get to step 3 and they tell us, hey, in order to get freedom from this humanly hopeless problem, right? There's no human power that can relieve us of this insanity that we experience. We need a spiritual solution. Well, it just so turns out that if we address this thing that is common to all human beings, this selfishness, this spiritual malady, it removes our specific insanity, right? Which is a miraculous solution. I have a physical and mental problem, and I have a solution that is spiritual, that is unrelated to it, that solves it, right? That's called a miracle. It's like, poof, where to go? I don't know. That's really amazing. It works. So then once you get to step 3, they have this line in here. I don't know if anybody's ever told you what the plot of the 12 steps is, but it's on page 62. It says, above everything, So this is the only place in this book where these two words appear next to each other in this order. Above everything. That means whatever you want to place above this is higher. This is more important, right? This is the most important point in this book. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. Why does it kill us? Because we remain subject to the insanity, right? So we can never stay sober if we do not get freedom from selfishness. We may have periods of whatever sobriety, but ultimately the insanity always comes back. The promise of step one is that the time and place will come, right? The insanity will hit. And my only hope is the growth and maintenance of a spiritual solution, spiritual way of life. And the root of that is getting out of self, right? The whole point is to get out of self, make God my director, to be guided by a power greater than myself rather than by my selfish motives, and to be fearfully grabbing and snatching for all that I think that I need so that I can be happy. It doesn't work. If it worked, it would have worked by now, you know? And most of us have a lot of experience with it not working by the time we get here. Um, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's a lot more that I could say. I don't know how much more time I have, but
You got about 8 or 9 minutes if you'd like to continue. If you'd like to wrap it up, we can go there too. Whatever you want, Luke.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, I'll talk about this a little bit more. Just go into step 3, kind of. So like I said, the solution to this selfishness is making God my director, right? So they start going into this at the bottom of page 62. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal, we are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple. This concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we passed to freedom. Now, Bill uses this metaphor of an archway, right? Building an archway. He talks about step 2 is the cornerstone. The foundation is either the fellowship or working with others, depending on what section you read. But the keystone. So the keystone is the center stone at the top of the archway, right? So the stones on the sides of the arch will rest against the keystone, right? And so if you take the keystone out, the rocks or whatever's constituting the arch will collapse, right? They will all fall down. So what this is implying is if step 3 is not in place, if the keystone is not in place, then you got rubble, you got rocks on the ground. And so you can do inventory, you can make amends, you can sponsor other people, but if it's still motivated by self and trying to get what you want, then it will not bear good fruit, right? It will not lead to the freedom, the experiences, the promises that this book describes. And it describes a profound, powerful experience, For example, by the time they get to page 84, we don't hear these very often, but the 10th step promises on page 84. We like to read the 9th step promises on the page before, but the 10th step promises to me are almost more powerful. So starting at the last paragraph on page 84, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. So we're not playing God anymore. That's what that means. For by this time, sanity will have returned. This is the first point in the book where they say that sanity will have returned, right? They say that we're insane in step 2. This is where they say that the sanity has returned by the time we finish our amends, or at least have begun on them. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. You ever had trouble not touching a hot flame? Maybe when you're really little, but you do it a few times and then it's like, oh boy, and that's the experience they're describing. They're saying that staying away from liquor is going to be like trying to not put your hand in a fireplace. It's like, well, that's not very difficult. Yeah, exactly. And guess what? We will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. Again, it is a miracle. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed, right? What is the problem they're describing here? The problem is the insanity. You know, they describe the insanity before the first drink as the main problem of the alcoholic. And they're saying this problem gets removed, right? If the problem is me, if the problem is my selfishness, then what does that mean? You know, I get removed. You know, it's like, well, that's not what they're implying. They're saying the insanity gets removed, right? So it does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So in step one, they say, hey, you got this humanly hopeless problem. Don't concern yourself with that at all. That gets you in the door. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on this completely different thing over here. And when this gets addressed, this other thing will be taken care of. You won't have to worry about it, right? And what a lot of people do is they try to focus on step one. I need to get a deeper understanding of my powerlessness. I need to connect with my powerlessness. I need to, all this stuff. And we can't do anything with that. There's nothing you can do with it, right? Step one is just a big problem, right? We don't get any power until step three, right? Step three is when the solution starts. It's when the power comes in, right? When I work with people, I try to get them through the first couple steps pretty quick into step three and then started on step four, because that's where the freedom begins, And I personally feel that based on my understanding, that is the most loving thing that I can do, right? To get somebody connected to God, connected to a solution as quickly as possible. They're suffering, they're hurting, right? I don't want them to suffer unnecessarily. Like, I'm not going to have them spend weeks and weeks writing on garbage in step one. It's like we work step one out there, out in the world. All we do is we get a description of what it actually means, right? Hey, this is what your problem is. This is why you can't stop. And then, oh my God, yeah, you're right. I get it. I understand. Okay, let's get to a solution. You want to be free? You want to stop? You want to be done? All right, this is how we do it. If you want it, if you want it, you don't have to do anything. But and they say these promises are contingent on maintaining a fit spiritual condition. Another way of saying that is staying out of selfishness, right? Staying focused on God, living in step three every day. God is my director. What does my director want me to do today, right? There's another line on page 77, which tells me what my real purpose is. I don't know if you ever heard this before, but it says it on page 77. It says our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. And this is my guiding light in all of life, all of life. Why am I here? What is my purpose here? Well, it's to be helpful, right? To be of service to God and the people about me everywhere that I go, right? I am God's customer service agent, When I got here, I was on the other side of the counter, ringing the bell, Is there anybody there? Is there anybody there? I need some help, I need some service. I got a complaint, and what the program has taught me is I got to go on to the other side of the counter. And then I say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? I work for God. God takes care of my needs, and my job is to show up for you. What can I do for you? What can I do for the next guy? And so this is it, right? If I'm living that way, my problems get solved. My problems disappear, right? When I got here, I was a problem factory. I went around finding problems, Oh, I don't like that. Oh, that shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't feel this way. This shouldn't be my experience. I don't like you. I don't know what you're doing. What the heck is going on here, right? All these judgments, it's playing God, right? For me, the judgments and the opinions are one of the main hallmarks of playing God, right? And I was telling somebody last night, they brought up the section on acceptance is the answer, right? Dr. Paul's story. And a lot of people really like this. And I think one of the things that they don't realize, most people probably don't realize, is that's what step three means, right? That's what it means to stop playing God. It means that I'm accepting life and reality as it's being presented to me. And then I'm asking God how he wants me to respond to it instead of judging it and evaluating it, right? When they say we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, it says that in several places, the 10-step promises, and at the end of working with others. Yeah, at the end of work 103. Besides, we have stopped fighting anybody or anything. We have to, right? We have to stop playing God, right? It doesn't work. If we keep playing God and try to apply a spiritual solution, we get more suffering, you know? We're not living in the solution, right? And I think this is one of the pieces that can get lost as we go through. Um, One thing, because it's so pervasive, right? Everybody's doing it pretty much all the time, right? If you hear somebody complaining, guess what? They're playing God, right? If you hear somebody's frustrated with something, guess what? They're playing God, right? And the opposite is so free. You know, it's so freeing. It's like I don't have to figure anything out. I don't have to judge anything. I don't have to, determine what should or shouldn't be happening. I just need to be asking God what my role is. What am I supposed to be doing here, God? How can I help? You know, I get people are making mistakes and they're screwing up. Like I get that, but uh, what do you want me to? How do you want me to respond? How can I help? How can I bring some light? How can I seek to love, comfort, and understand the people here? And in my experience, life becomes a lot more enjoyable and a lot more peaceful. And sobriety, when you want to talk about sobriety, like, oh my God, sobriety is easy when you live this way. I mean, maybe that's cocky. I don't know, but I should be careful. But that's been my experience. Like, I don't have to think about it. I get focus on God. I focus on this solution, trying to help others. And God takes care of my sobriety. God takes care of my problems. Uh, so.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke. I loved how you walked through that. And I've got several notes here with a few questions that I've written. A reminder to our live audience, if you have a question for Luke, please post it in the chat if you'd like to remain anonymous. In other words, if you don't want me to read your first name when I ask the question, just type anonymous or direct message it to me. If you direct message it to me, I'm going to assume you want anonymous. All right. So Luke, I loved this, the plot, how you identified the plot of the big book. I've never heard it called that, but above everything, we must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. And God makes that possible. Talk to us just a little bit more about the power of understanding that plot of the entire big book and how that can help the newcomer or somebody who's been, white knuckling and just continually relapsing throughout their recovery.
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a lot of people that are in this situation, I believe, from what I have observed. So it really helps if you're gonna practice a solution. It really helps to know what the problem is. And again, this the language that I'm using, I'm very aware of the language that I'm using, because when we talk about a problem, that usually refers to step one. But what I'm referring to as the problem here is going to be selfishness, right? So I'll give you some examples, okay? So the practices that we have in our fellowship of spending a lot of time and energy and effort on step one, right? We write out step one. We have a first step meeting where we share step one. Some people have them share step one with 3 to 5 people, or there's a lot of energy and time that we spend focusing on step one. And I have done all that. I've sponsored people for 10 years now. I've hosted, facilitated probably over 30 first steps for different people. And my observation has been the first step, writing it out, sharing it, seems to have very little make very little difference on the experience that somebody has. They can have experiences while doing them, but what I've observed is that the people who continue on and really get it, uh, they get it regardless of whether they do that or not, you know. And again, it's the experiences that we have out there in the world with our powerlessness, with our drug, right? And then hearing other people describe their own experiences, that core of the 12-step program, one alcoholic talking to another, one sexaholic talking to another, identification, you know, our disease is transmitted through the ears, right? You hear somebody talking about the real nature of their problem, and then you're like, oh my God, I got it. And then you got it, you know, it's like the game over, you know? So I believe that an accurate presentation of the problem and the solution is very important, and that's my primary responsibility as a sponsor, as a sober, recovered member. Um, so that's one example where, hey, there's nothing that we can do about step one, right? I need to get into the real solution. And we have oftentimes a lot of emphasis on the fellowship-based activities, you know, and I believe that there can be such a thing as a sort of pseudo fellowship-based sobriety, where we're going to a whole lot of meetings, we're calling a whole bunch of people, you know, and we can get some sobriety doing that, right? But what I see is that people are usually still playing God, right? They're still stuck in their selfishness. They call people and they talk about their problems, you know, they talk about themselves, they talk about the things they want and how life isn't going the way that they think they need it, right? It's just all selfishness, right? So they get a little bit of dim relief, you know. I've shared this with somebody, like there's some sort of, I don't know, cathartic kind of experience we can have, sharing stuff in a meeting, right? A lot of people go to meetings and they obsess about what they're going to say, and then they share for a few minutes, and then they obsess about what they said. And it's this, I'm just thinking about me, you know. If I can hear anything from somebody else, it's almost a miracle, you know. And I'm sharing from experience here because I've lived this. So we can engage in a lot of these activities, and if we don't realize that the root of the problem is selfishness, which in a very simple definition is just thinking about me, right? I'm thinking about me. I'm talking about me. I'm focusing on me, right? I need to get focused on God and others, right? And so if the actions that I'm taking are not leading to that, then they will not be leading to the freedom and the experience that the book describes. And so we can get misled by these suggestions that, hey, you know, you gotta practice step zero and go to meetings for however long, and you know, demonstrate your willingness by staying sober for 30 days before we start the steps. Or, you know, there's all kinds of things that get passed around the fellowship that I believe are in direct contradiction to the solution and my understanding of the problem and the solution. So untangling these things, I think, can be very helpful for people. There can be a lot of, like I said, light bulb moments when it's like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Like, that's why I couldn't stay sober, because I was even trying to get sobriety, right? Sobriety is my selfish goal. I need to go out and get it. And I'm going to get it by using God, by using the tools, by using the program, by using the 12 steps, right? It doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. God is not a cosmic vending machine that I put money into and then I get the candy bar that I want. You know, it's like God's power only is effective in me when I give myself to God. You know, okay, God, what do you want me to do? You know, what are my marching orders? Whatever you want me to do today is fine by me. You know, and that's the attitude of surrender, which leads to the freedom and the experience that is described in this book.
Mm. Thank you, Luke. You know, over the last couple of months, it's been brought to my attention, mostly by my higher power, but also through a couple others who have said, have brought it to my attention that I'm in a place where the should is really loud. You know, these people should be this way. I should be that way. And it's been brought to my attention that I should, here we go again, um, treat that much like, you know, doing a 10th step. You know, when I recognize that I'm shoulding, that, you know, things should be a different way, I need to, well, ask God to remove it, talk to another person immediately, turn my thoughts to somebody I can be of service to. Talk to me a little bit more about this, how this should works in with selfishness. Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, well, I'm only allowed one should, and that should is that I should be asking God what He wants me to do, and turning my will and life over to God's care. I'm really only allowed. I'm only allowed one desire, and that's whatever God wants, God's will, right? And the underlying understanding or belief in that is that God knows better than me. I'm not God. I don't know what should be happening in my life. I don't know how it should be going, right? One of the most stark and uncomfortable examples of applying this in day-to-day living for me is my sponsor. God bless him. I loved him so much. But he'd be so obnoxious sometimes. So obnoxious. I'd be driving somewhere, going to an appointment, going to work. I don't know what, but I'd be late. Right, I was not going to arrive at the time that I felt that I should be arriving. And, and I would say something, call him on the phone, say something about it to him. And he would say, oh, you're going to get there exactly when God wants you to get there. And then it would be like, and then I have an opportunity. I have an opportunity at that point. So this is the moment, right? This is the moment where it happens, right? So what I have found is in that moment when I realize this, my options are to accept that, and then I get immediate peace, freedom. I'm okay. Everything is fine, right? There's no problem. Or I can hold on to this idea that I was supposed to get there earlier. I was supposed to leave earlier. I was supposed to do something different. It was supposed to go differently, And then I remain disturbed. I remain upset. I get the adrenaline, all this stuff, right? And I've found that it's just that simple. And what happens to me when I say I'm going to get there exactly when God wants me to get there, what happens is it becomes a learning opportunity, a growth opportunity, right? So then it's like, well, if I don't want this to happen in the future, I probably need to leave earlier, Like I start thinking about things differently, It's like, well, maybe God allowed me to have this experience so that I'd be motivated to do something different tomorrow, But I'm not fighting it. I'm not fighting the experience, the situation anymore. So it's like I'm turning my attention and my focus back to God, and then seeing what God wants to teach or remind me through it,
Yeah, I have a quick follow up on that, and then I'm going to go to a question that came in from our audience. But the quick follow up is, how do you change seats in that? Let's say that you are the one that's waiting for somebody who's late to what we have planned. How do you then say, well, that person's going to show up right when God wants them, and have peace with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it is like I'm tired of getting disturbed. Like I don't like being disturbed. Do you like being disturbed? I mean,
No.
it's what I found is that it's my decision. It is my decision. Like, do I want to hold on to this fantasy about how I thought the world should go? I'm faced with this opportunity all the time. Life rarely goes exactly the way that I think it should. You know, uh, what usually makes the difference for me, or makes it more or less difficult for me, is when I'm affected. Right? Like in step 4, when we talk about resentments, right? This guy showed up late. I'm pissed off because he affected me. He's not respecting me. He's I start telling myself this story because I got affected. If I hear about somebody who's late for an appointment, I have a friend, I talk to him on the phone, or he's supposed to be meeting with somebody and they're late. It's like, I don't really care, I guess that's too bad for you, but you're waiting for this person. But it doesn't affect me, right? It doesn't activate that selfishness, that internal disturbance. So again, it's like, it's my way, right? My way is the problem. It's the root of it. And so maybe it's God giving me an opportunity to learn some patience, to learn some tolerance, to learn some, to have some, respond with some empathy and compassion. There's more going on in life than me, like this person may have had a really terrible morning. They may have gotten, stuck in a traffic jam. They might have had a car wreck. They might, their mother might have died. I have no idea, right? I have no idea. But there's stuff going on that I'm not aware of. And again, I got to get out of this selfish way of viewing the world where I'm always looking at how does it impact me, right?
Yeah. No, that's very powerful. Thank you for walking through that. All right. Next question comes from an anonymous attendee here. This person says, I can see how selfishness has guided my words and actions this far in life. What do you recommend for moving forward as far as when I don't think, know, or understand what my higher power wants me to do? I understand asking for guidance. And what if I don't get or sense or hear a clear answer or direction? What's your take on that, Luke?
Well, like most things, it's probably more simple than you're making it out. We tend to complicate things. My experience is that God is very simple and our ego is very complicated. I complicate things. So a few things come to mind. On page 68, when it talks about fear, they say that we're in the world to play the role he assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us and humbly rely on him does he enable us to match calamity with serenity. I don't have to know. I don't have to get it perfect, right? I just have to do my best idea, my best conception in this moment, right? When in doubt, be of service. What's the most loving thing that I can do here? Those are great questions you can ask yourself, right? I personally believe that God is love, right? So love is going to be the best possible solution and way forward for all parties involved, right? If it's good for me, but it's not good for somebody else, it's not love. If it's good for somebody else, but it's not good for me, then it's not love, right? It's best for all people involved, not just the other person. Chuck C used to say, hey, I live in constant expectation of guidance and direction, constant expectation of guidance and direction. And then he would say, hey, I just go out and I start moving things around. I just start doing stuff, right? Taking some action. The kiss of death for us is to sit and do nothing, right? To think, just think about it, right? This process for me is really, it's meant to be pretty quick. Like, hey, God, what do you want me to do? Guidance and direction, right? Then I go out and start doing something, right? Get into action, start moving, right? Motion changes emotion. And, a lot of times I don't get the guidance and direction until I start doing something, and then it's like, hey, even if it's wrong, or I realize that it's not the direction I should be headed in, I can redirect, I can change course, right? Life is that way. It's fluid, I'm meant to be just doing stuff, trying stuff, making mistakes, learning, it's like, this is life. We get to live, let's live, right? Enjoy it, right?
Yeah, I love that. And wait, motion changes emotion. That's definitely a catchphrase from somewhere, but I've never heard it before. And it's going to go on my quote wall. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. All right. Next question is from Logan from our live audience. Logan says, what was your breakthrough moment or your aha moment in your recovery? What was your relationship with God prior to recovery? Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 spearhead.
Thank you, Logan. That's a great question. Aha moment. Well, there's been many, there's been many sort of spiritual awakenings along the way. I guess the most recent one, I'll just talk about that. The most recent one was when I was introduced to this understanding of the big book that I shared today, which was about 4 years ago. And I heard a fellow alcoholic on a podcast. Shout out to Recovery Radio KMP3, Thousand Oaks, Clay F., author of the Sarcastic Big Book. I heard him read through step 3 out of the big book, and it changed my. I mean, I was like 7 years sober at the time. Like, I'd been around the big book, reading the big book, like for years, literally. Like, I knew it very well. And I had never heard it put, as probably a lot of you are having this experience this morning. I had never heard it put that way. I had never heard it focused on that way. The selfishness, this getting out of self is the plot, right? There's threads through all the rest of the steps of step 3, and it was like, oh my gosh, I started to get so much clarity, right? Of like, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is this is what they're talking about, and I think it's made me more effective in my 12-step work, that I can talk about these things hopefully pretty clearly and intelligently, and kind of untangle things for people, because like I said, there's a lot of things that we hear in the fellowship, and they may or may not jive with what's in the book, right? So anyway, that was a big one. Right?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I've got another question here. You mentioned earlier in your talk, you said you said something like, if I'm trying to follow my script, I'm trying to play God. But if it's God's script, I don't have a script. I don't have to worry about it. I just go through life that way. What was the experience that made you go, you know what, I'm going to chuck my script and let God lead and guide? And when you start bringing your own script back in, how quickly do you recognize that, and how do you give it back to God?
Yeah, appreciate the question. That's great. It's ongoing, right? It's ongoing. I believe that step 3 is an ongoing deepening experience over time. There's kind of a minimum of surrender or change of attitude or heart that is necessary to continue, and then over time we learn more and more and better how to apply it and how to live it more consistently, more often, more situations. And so that has been my experience. For time, it deepens and it grows. And like I shared earlier, the primary indication that I'm playing God is I'm disturbed, right? Anytime I am disturbed, I'm playing God. It sounds too simple, but that has been my experience. There's always something that I am holding on to, some attachment to an outcome that I'm holding on to, something that I think, some way that I think I need to be treated, something I think I need to get from somebody, it never fails. So that's the primary indication to me that I'm getting back onto my script instead of God's script. One of the things that was really helpful for me in this regard, practicing it, is to stay curious. Stay curious, right? So instead of going from, I'm seeing the world, I'm seeing something, right? And then slapping some opinions and judgments and things on it and saying, I like this, I don't like this, this is good, this is bad, to instead say, I wonder what's going on here. What are you up to here, God? What's my role in this, right? So to respond to life with curiosity instead of the judgment, right? And I find that that's much more pleasant. I'm no different than anybody else. That my primary motivators are really pain and freedom from pain. I mean, it's like when I'm in self, I suffer. I suffer, and like I said before, I'm tired of getting disturbed. I don't like getting disturbed. I don't like suffering. I don't like being experiencing unnecessary pain. And I've truly become convinced that that's what I get. That's what I get when I play God. And so if I want to experience less of that, I just need to be all in with God, God's way. Whatever you want, God, right? And then life, like I said, it becomes very simple, very straightforward. And I just get to go around and be surprised by what God is doing and what He wants me to do, and it's an adventure. So.
And Luke, that's what I've been telling God that I'm seeking is an adventure. I think I just need to get in, put my hands in the air, and go for a ride, and not try and control which way the roller coaster is going to go, because that adventure is what I seek. So this is good. All right. So, do you have any final words of wisdom before we start closing out?
Well, you can't save your ass and your face at the same time. Is that wise? I don't know.
That is great. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's good stuff. All right. So I'm going to close this out and we'll get to the prayer here in just a second, Luke. So thank you so much, Luke, for that amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting. If anybody here in the live audience or anybody that's out there listening at a later time have any question that you'd like to pose to Luke or to anybody in the Rico 12 community about this conversation, consider joining our WhatsApp community or send me an email at rico12pod@gmail.com. Luke, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, is it okay if I relay that through that email to you if they'd like to get in contact with you directly?
Yeah, that's fine. Give my
okay.
number.
Very good. Yeah. So I'll just, so if you want to get in contact with him, email me. If you haven't yet, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way to work step 12 in sharing your recovery and sharing these messages with others. Next Friday, we're going to hear from another first-time Rico 12 speaker, Shay M. I look forward to hearing his share. It's called How the 12 Steps Saved Me from a Life of Lust, Fantasy, and Violence. So I'm excited to hear from him next week. Stay updated via WhatsApp or our email list. If you're not yet on that email list, send me an email, rico12pod@gmail.com. I'll get you there. Now let's wrap up with the third step prayer that Luke will say for us.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Take another moment of silence here for those who are suffering in and out of these rooms. Take us out with the third step prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always.
Thank you so much, Luke. Everybody remember, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me, your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. So let me see just what you need to set you free, so we can be. I saw stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low. But now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.